We're recording.
Thank you very much, sir. I'd like to call to order the City of Sumner City Council study session. The date is May the 10th and the time is 6:01. As a reminder, City Hall remains closed during Governor Inslee's Healthy Washington Recovery Roadmap order, consequence of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the public is invited to attend the meeting virtually by using the Zoom meeting access information that is posted on our website and is on the council agenda. And with that, I would note that all council members are present with the exception of Council Member Newman. And we have two items on our agenda. First one under regular business is the Sumner Main Street Association Director update. And show how much I prepared for this thing. I see Jill is on it, but is there staff going to make an introduction of Jill? Or am I just going to call on Jill Starks? I don't see any staff member raising their hand. Okay, that's a good indication right there. Mr. Beagle, you unmuted yourself. Nope, you muted yourself back in.
As I had a little PTSD here for a second. So good evening, Council, Mayor. Tonight we have Jill Starks from the Sumner Main Street Association to give us an update. Jill?
Very, very well stated, Mr. Beagle. That's good. Okay, Jill, go ahead. We see you still on mute, so you're going to have to navigate that one.
There. We're very high tech over here at Sumner Main Street. We have this wonderful large screen TV, but sometimes it's hard to see the buttons on the laptop. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Jill Starks. I'm the Executive Director. I'm joined here tonight by Kurt Johnson, who is our President. I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to come and do a brief presentation for you. What we are hoping to accomplish tonight is to just go over what Main Street is, and then what we've been up to this past quarter, and a little bit of what we're doing in going forward. I do want to say thank you for approving our budget amendment of a couple weeks ago, and hopefully this will kind of lead in nicely. So I'm going to go and share my screen.
Okay, just before you go, just for the record, Councilmember Newman joined us at 6:03. Go ahead, Jill.
Okay. That is my screen. Like I said, pardon me while I'm trying to work a mouse from across the room. And then hang on here while I line my mouse up. Like I said, we're so high tech, we hardly. Slideshow from the beginning. Are you seeing my slide?
We're seeing your first slide of your slide deck. I assume that's it. Sumner,
Yeah.
The Main Street impact.
Yes, but I'm not. I'm trying.
It looks really nice, Jill.
Good. I'm trying to get it to go to slideshow format, and it's not really wanting to do it for me. So I might have to just click through my side panel, and we'll do what we need to do. So, and it's not going. I honestly practiced all of this beforehand. The joys of Zoom. What did we say? The 17th month of 2020, and we still haven't figured out Zoom. Okay, can you see my second slide now?
No, ma'am.
You cannot. Okay.
I know what it looks like because I can see it in the council packet, but
I know, and I've changed it a little bit.
Mayor, I might suggest, Jill, if you'd like to email it to one of us, we could display our screen for you, if that's easier.
Okay.
as long as you don't email it to me.
Yeah, I apologize. This is not
That's it.
how I foresaw this going.
It ain't the first time, Jill.
Well, hang on, let me try one more. One more. We do have all night, right?
No, actually, we don't.
I know, I'm joking.
But I wasn't.
Okay, let's try this one more time this way. Are you seeing PowerPoint up right now?
We're seeing the same thing we have been seeing.
So you haven't seen any change in your screen?
No.
Well, then I am going to do just that and email it. To what email address should I send it to?
You can send it to me, Jill, Andrea M@sumnerwa.gov.
Okay, hang on.
Hey, Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
this might be a good learning opportunity for future Zoom presentations is to have a copy available to staff that can jump in and take over the screen share if necessary. Because who knows when when something's going to lock up or not want to move forward.
Who knows when the gremlins are going to arise?
It could be any time. I'm just happy I've got stable connection now myself.
Andrea, is that at sumnerwa.gov?
Yes.
Okay, I just forwarded. Like I said, we're kind of new to this this large screen format, and I barely had the small screen format down. And as I tried earlier, I might just go to my.
Jill, try unsharing your screen and then resharing. Sometimes if you make changes on your
No,
end.
and I can't really do that. I tried it earlier with, yeah, okay, there. Okay, do you see the presentation now?
We're seeing that first slide.
Yeah. Okay. Something totally different here. I am joining from my laptop and I'm moving away from our larger screen. Okay. So
And Jill, our ratings are going down.
Sorry. I apologize.
Okay,
We've
Jill, I
been there,
see
done
you
that.
as an attendee, but you'll need to leave from your television. So
Yes,
you'll be in it
I
once, or
am.
it'll be echoey. That's an official technical term.
Leave. I apologize.
Can we do it without the pictures?
Um,
We're gonna find out in a second.
yes, we're getting there.
We have your budget.
I know. Hopefully now you don't have my budget.
It's still up there.
Okay. Stop here. I'm not gonna be invited back, am I? Okay. Can you see now my slide?
Yeah, hit the from the beginning. Let's see what happens.
Ah, there we go.
There you
Can you see that?
are.
Oh,
Yay.
thank goodness for small miracles.
There
Okay.
you are.
So, again,
Okay.
thank you for having us. Why Main Street? You know, we were an organization that was formed in 2015, and there already was a Main Street in town, the Sumner Downtown Association. That association folded in, I believe, about 2017. And it was at that time that we started pursuing the accreditation of Main Street ourselves. And so as this sentence or comment says, Main Street is built on a 40-year history of cultivating a comprehensive approach to community and economic development. Main Street programs excel at supporting small businesses, enhancing the quality of life for residents, and restoring vitality to historic commercial districts. They came around about 40 years ago in a response to the shopping malls. My dad was a small business owner in Tacoma, and he bought his business in 1965. And in 1966, the Tacoma Mall was built. And so I can say from personal experience, his business didn't last much after the opening of the Tacoma Mall. And it was around that time that communities started to realize that they needed to come together and work together as a downtown core if they were going to save these downtown businesses. The Main Street approach. So we leverage human assets and heritage assets. We are comprised of 4 committees: economic vitality, outreach, promotion, and design. In these 4 committees, we have a variety of representatives. We have business owners, we have building owners, we have folks within the city government, whether it be an elected official such as yourself or staff that serve pretty much on each one of our committees. We have community members, we have other nonprofit members. And so we really have a broad base to move forward with this proven Main Street approach. Community Main Streets are a downtown district. We are a specific geographic area. So our area runs from Friar Traffic on the west to Meade on the east to Maple on the south and North on the north. And we focus on this district, and we are more about the geographic area than we are necessarily about individual members. A chamber is more focused on individual membership. Main Streets are more focused on a specific geographic area. There are 36 accredited main streets in the state of Washington. Those are the green dots. There are 3 within Pierce County, Sumner, Puyallup, and Gig Harbor. And there are about an equal amount of affiliate main streets, and that's what we were prior to becoming Community Main Street this past January. Buckley is the one and only affiliate main street now in Pierce County. Now I'm gonna have to move my little, so cities have always been partners of Main Streets, and they contribute financially to Main Street programs primarily through 3 ways: contracts for services, the Main Street Tax Credit Incentive Program, which cities can contribute through the utility tax program, and LTAC, which is lodging tax dollars. The current range for contribution in cities of our size tends to be between $25,000 and $100,000 annually, although there are just 2 that fall in the $25,000 to $50,000 annually, and this is based on 2020 numbers. 33 of the 36 Main Street Association designated communities, oops, and now I'm jumping ahead of myself, report that their cities do contribute. So that means only 3 cities do not contribute financially to their Main Street organizations. Cities as beneficiaries. Cities benefit from having main streets in the following ways, and I will just rattle these off. Increased tax base, more tourism, increased property values, increased number of jobs, better goals and vision, healthy economy, better services are available. Oops, there I got ahead of myself. Positive perception of downtown and community, better relations between city hall and private sector, increased volunteer base, industrial recruitment, and impetus for public involvement. Where Main Street has been, this Community Main Street organization has been excellent at creating partnerships. Oops. We've been top-notch producers of retail events and community events. We've been excellent promoters of downtown's historic charm, and we've been supporters of a strong retail shopping district. Where we are going, we are working to create more partnerships within our community. We are working collaboratively with the city on creating creative placekeeping through the UW Tacoma project. We are developing out the entrepreneurial ecosystems, business incubators, and co-working spaces concepts. Our first quarter of 2021, we adopted the theme of Reimagine Sumner. We made the commitment to not cancel any of our events, but reimagine them. When we were sitting there in December coming up with this theme, I think we all thought that 2021 would roll out a little bit differently than it has. So we really have had to think creatively about how our events roll out this year. I just wanted to list out who our board of directors were, just to give you a point of reference. So Curtis Johnson, who's here with me, is our president, and he is the owner of Into Vintage. Nicole Wilsey is our vice president, and she's the owner of Sparrow and Nightingales. Dale Loseth is our secretary, and he's with the Sumner Historical Society. Suzanne Kipfer is our treasurer, and she owns Simple Tidings and Kitchen. Jolene Jones chairs our design committee, and she's with JMJ team. Luann Eisland is on our outreach committee, and she owns A Picket Fence. Ashley Krebs does our promotion, and she's with the Old Cannery. And Ann Van Larup with Van Larup Garden Market, and April McLean of Hometown Charm Cafe round out our board of directors. And now I just kind of want to roll into what we've accomplished this first quarter in 2021. You know, January, we spent the month locked down, which was challenging, and we've slowly rolled out. And now this quarter we've rolled backwards, but we have faith that we're going to continue in a forward momentum. So in January, we hosted our first pardon our train, our first virtual annual meeting and had 40 attendees, and we raised nearly $2,000 in a virtual auction, which was also a first for us. We applied for our 501c3 status. I don't know how many of you are aware, but this organization was formed as a 501c6. We felt it was beneficial, especially if we were going to move into the individual donation realm of things and apply for grants, that we need to be a 501c3. That application is in the IRS pipeline, and we know that when we do get approved, assuming that we do get approved, it will be retroactive to January 1st. We elected Curtis Johnson as our president, and I mentioned that because for our first 5 years, we had the same president, and sometimes it's difficult to make those transitions, and we successfully have transitioned. It's kind of like the Washington Adams situation. And we're proud to say that we met our 2021 B&O goal. And through B&O, we have 9 different contributors, all local companies, small and large, that have helped us to meet our goal. And though the details haven't been worked out, this past legislative session, House Bill, I believe 1273 was passed, and that will increase the amount of money that we definitely get to raise going forward in 2022. And there's a possibility that we might have a small window to raise more in 2021. So we're excited about that. Our outreach committee, at the end of the first quarter, we had 55 business members and 7 individuals. That number has raised to 65. We've highlighted 13 members in a weekly social media post. We've sent over 1,700 emails to downtown businesses over 3 months, and our volunteers have served just under 260 hours in our first quarter. Our Economic Vitality Committee held a weekly gift card drawing that brought in 711 entries. We hosted 2 ribbon cuttings. We were involved in American Express's Dying Small campaign, racking up 431 impressions on our social media channels. And we partnered with both the Puyallup-Sumner Chamber of Commerce and the Fife Milton-Edgewood Chamber of Commerce to co-host our first education forum. Our design crew got creative, and we launched the Love Sumner project, where we gathered 138 hearts that folks wrote what they loved about Sumner, and we displayed them in our downtown windows. Like I mentioned before, we've been partnering with the city as a member of the Main Street Visioning Project with the UW-Tacoma, and we are in the process of working with the city on new wayfinding signage. Our promotions committee, we got really creative with our wine walk, and we renamed our Sip and Stroll to a Shop Snack and Stroll, which was a 2-week passport that folks went from store to store to get punched. 125 passports were returned. And I can tell you the feedback that we got from doing something that simple was so positive. People were just excited that we were doing something. And we continue to work with the city to reimagine our 2021 events. Our second quarter goals are to increase our volunteer pool through our Sumner Sweeps event, which happened last weekend. And we had 20 different volunteers down weeding, sweeping, pressure washing, and planting a beautiful flower display at the intersection of Alder and Main. And together they put in nearly 40 hours. We're in the process of implementing events that are within guidelines and drive customers to businesses. 2 events that are coming up. One is a summer-long event called our Centennial Building Celebration. We have 7 buildings in downtown Sumner that are turning 100 this year. And so we are reinvigorating a virtual tour of our downtown, a self-guided tour, and with the possibility of maybe having some guided tours. We're having a new video put together, and we're going to do some in-store small-scale events and activations. So watch our social media for different activities that'll be happening downtown around that. And then we've also reimagined our craft beverage event, which was originally supposed to follow along the sip and stroll model that we've used so successfully in the past. So this has been renamed Downtown Hoedown, a craft beverage crawl in Sumner. It's very similar to those of you who may have participated in the Cowboy Crawl in Puyallup, where it is a ticketed restaurant event where you will get 2 tickets that will get you a craft beverage drink and a small food item, and then the restaurants can bring those tickets back to our office and we will reimburse them for their expense. So we're looking forward to both of those events that are happening in early summer. And then we're participating in discussions on leveraging the economic impact of ARPA funds for our downtown. We'd love to be involved in that and help with that process. And we're focusing on programs like a new downtown gift card that provide needed relief for businesses.
Jill,
Yeah.
just time out real quick. Just noted for the record is that we're getting some anonymous attendees posting questions, in our Q&A section, which is the first. And for the record on city council study sessions is that it's really open for the council to ask questions of the presenters and not members that are in the audience, in this case, the virtual audience. If the person that is anonymous wants to identify themselves so they can have staff get back to them with those answers, or have the Sumner Main Street Association get back to them with those answers, that's another thing. So just for the record, clearing it up. Go ahead, Jill.
Just a quick update on Rhubarb Days. We're shifting to a 4-Saturday event in July, the 10th, 17th, 24th, and 31st. It will be from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. each day. We're using farmers market guidelines, and we are using parking lots, the Craft 19 and the Trackside parking lot. We are not closing streets. We are sticking to a more manageable format. And then we'll be hosting small pop-up activations throughout the month in various stores. Here is our address, which I think most of you are familiar with where we're at. We're at 923 Kincaid. I welcome any and all of you to stop in, and we'll most likely be reaching out to connect one-on-one with each of you, just to have us better familiarize ourselves with you and you better familiarize yourself with us. And that concludes my presentation. And I apologize for the fumbling, and I appreciate your graciousness as I switched gear, as I reimagined how I was going to present to the Sumner City Council. And Curtis and I both are open to any questions that you might have.
Well, Jill, it was good recovery. I'm not sure I could have carried it off. No, I'm sure I couldn't have carried it off. I'll rephrase that. So congratulations. Questions or comments from council members for Jill and or Curtis about the SMSA and what you heard tonight? Don't be shy now.
Can we count on all of you to volunteer at Rhubarb Days this year?
Well, we're going to volunteer as those that don't raise their hands. Anyway, Councilmember Newman.
Hi, Jill. Thank you for the presentation. I have a question, and I don't know if you need to go back to others. Actually, I have a couple of questions, and I don't know if you need to go back to other slides or not. First, I guess I was wondering about, I think you had mentioned that other cities, typically give, provide funds, for downtown associations. Do you know, roughly, how many cities, but also if those funds tend to come from, or do most of those cities use LTAC funds to do that, or do they use their general funds? Do you know the pool of funds that the cities tend to use?
They come from the 3 funds listed. I don't know the breakdown, but I would be happy to gather that and tell you what percentage come from LTAC, what percentage comes from B&O tax, which the city's case would be utility, and what percent comes from contract for services. And I'd be happy to get that back to you.
I'd be curious about examples from other cities about their formula, like how they and whether they use one fund or multiple funds, depending on what makes sense and what they're funding. And then this is one where I don't know if it's useful to go back to slides. I remember like one of them had sort of like, I think some of your basically like future goals, like the incubator and whatnot. I am wondering what more specifically, like prioritizing what you hope to be working on in the, say, like the next 5 years. Is it still going to be events focused? And if we have a service, I'm getting at, does it make sense? I'm thinking about in the future, how it makes sense for the city to support the downtown association, and especially in a way that doesn't distract you from bigger missions. Like for instance, if it makes sense, if you actually get more revenue by doing events and it makes sense for us to only use LTAC funds for it, then that's one thing. But I don't know if us only using LTAC funds also then restricts what you're able to do and restricts our support for you. So I'm just kind of curious about the balance between those.
Go ahead.
I think the partnership effort between the SMSA organization and the city we're going to come to the surface at some point once we get past COVID-19 and the restrictions set forth by the governor. I think there's opportunities from an economic vitality to grow together as one big team working on all these events or other economic opportunities within the community. I'm not going to say that we're not going to try not to do retail events because it does bring people to the city. I think if we utilize some of the city resources, primarily the parking lot behind Craft 19 as an example, maybe put live music there so we can get more people to come downtown Sumner. Given the fact that Sumner's growing in the next 5 years, there's a lot to be said about the future of Sumner in terms of progress and how we're going to work together. Our goal and our mission is really working with the city as our partner. And I think it's really important that we all understand that.
Mm-hmm. We'll be working on a strategic plan this summer, going forward 5 years, because now we're a community Main Street, and COVID-19 has really forced us to realize that prior to this year, we were 85% in that promotion quadrant and probably 15% in the outreach quadrant, primarily with volunteers. We would like to balance those 4 quadrants out. So we will really be spending some time in the design and economic vitality arenas. Ryan and I have been communicating recently about the whole ecosystem incubator concepts and what would they mean if we brought them to Sumner. And even the vocabulary, an incubator to one person means something and to another person means something entirely different. We've met with the gentleman from Spaceworks and got a lot of ideas there. And so I feel like we're kind of wading through this together, and maybe that's presumptuous of me to say that Main Street is a partner there, but we're definitely having conversations together about how to move forward.
Great, thank you.
Have Kathy and then Patrick. Go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah, Joe, I just want to say thank you for the presentation, and you guys have done a good job with what you've had to work with so far. And I look forward to things opening up one of these days and getting back to normal. So thank you for all you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. I agree. I appreciate all the work you've done and the transition that's had to happen over and over and over again throughout the last 14 months. But I did have a question you might be able to clarify for me, and I may have missed it in the terminology. But the Main Street or the community Main Street designation, is that the same one issued via Commerce and the Historic Society through the state? Or is that a separate program?
It is, yes, it's the Washington Historic Trust is where we're housed. And so, yes, I believe, and we used to be more Department of Commerce, and we shifted several years ago to the Historic Trust Fund or Foundation.
Great, yeah, and I remembered that transition taking place a while back, and I couldn't remember how it all broke down, but no, thank you for clarifying, because I know that's just another designation. I know there are several at the state level that are looking to enhance and bolden those that qualify for that status.
Which I believe they just did with House Bill 1273, or they made some steps in that direction. One of them, for those of you that were involved or knew, the B&O tax program used to be competitive, and the gates used to open up at midnight. And I don't know too many business owners that, even though the deduction is great, I don't know too many business owners that want to set their alarm at midnight and go online and pledge money. That has changed, but the extra money piece still had a midnight open time, and that has been rolled back to 8 a.m. also. So it's a kinder, gentler, more sane process, and it can only get better. Anytime you can move something from midnight to 8 a.m. is a win-win.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments council members have? Go ahead, Barb.
Shoot. So I'm wondering, how much did you raise in the B&O tax?
The B&O tax is capped at $90,000, and we kind of set a goal that if our first year, if we got 50%, we were going to be happy. We met that $90,000 and even had a few still knocking at the door. So that's a good feeling, and that's nice for us. But you have to understand, we were coming off of a deficit, and not necessarily a deficit, but we did not meet our budget expectations for 2020. So we're kind of backfilling in and making plans for a rainy day fund, because a rainy day does happen in the name of COVID. And so we're trying to be more prepared in going forward, and we're trying to build capacity to build out in the design and the economic vitality areas. We would love to offer grants to our small businesses, whether it be startup grants or facade improvement grants. And, in this environment, until things kind of level out a bit, we don't feel super confident going out there until things in our economy and our state kind of level out and open up. But those are the directions that we want to go.
So you can choose how you spend those dollars. You're not restricted.
They are unrestricted funds.
Okay, that's good. And then I also had a question about, I know you've approached Rotary to help with volunteers. So how many people are you looking for usually? And, how do you develop your volunteer base?
Well, it depends on the event and it depends on the activity. For example, I have a very large data entry project sitting here. Of all of those entry forms that we got in over first quarter, they need to be entered so that we can start creating a community newsletter to go out to those folks. Volunteer shifts at events, I try to keep them at 2 or 3 hours, but people can always work more. In the world of COVID, we are looking at, 2 and 3 times the amount of folks that we normally need, which this organization has produced fabulous events and have had people that have supported them as volunteers. We just need to build that out more. But and as I told the folks that showed up for Sumner Sweeps, I said, first and foremost, this needs to be fun. So if it stops being fun, that's when you need to go home, because I want you to come back the next go around. I don't want you to be here for hours on end, pulling weeds, sweeping and that sort of thing. And you know, they all hung in till the end, and no one was here for more than 3 hours last Saturday. So that was great.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, any other council members before I go back and call on Charlotte again? I don't see anybody. Go ahead, Charlotte.
I have a question. I just want to say congratulations on the B&O effort. It's huge, both during time of COVID and when that program was just starting to be available again. Anyway, just really impressive. I thought the free anyway. So, but just
and I just want to give a shout out to our outreach committee, who Mayor Pugh is a part of. A couple members of that committee really embraced this and went out, and that's what it needs to be. It's, you know, as the executive director, I'm happy to go and make these calls, but when it's spread out over our volunteer board and our volunteer committee members, it means that much more.
Okay, just a couple of quick questions here, Jill. You talked about your three sources of money being contract for services, tax incentive, which I take it is the B&O, tax credit, and then the LTAC. Where does the sound system or hanging baskets, do they fit any of those three categories, or are they just extra on top of that?
Well, you know, those we have appreciated that the city has provided for, but there are many main streets that do maintain their hanging basket program, which often includes the purchase of a truck with a watering tank. We're a long ways away from that. But I think one of the things that we proved during COVID is we can execute a project, and we can execute a project quickly and efficiently. Light Up Maine is a perfect example, and I know Councilmember Hostetter, that was a pet project of yours, one that you supported, not that I know that you all supported. So, you know, if push came to shove, if the city wanted to loan us the truck with the watering tank, I'm sure we could work to make it happen.
Okay. I was just noticing Light Up Maine is that we're part of Light Up Maine, but we're really not in the district.
I think you guys did your own.
Yeah, I think we did, because we weren't part of that. The other thing, going back to I think what Barb asked, is that you talked about you got the $90,000, which was beyond your expectations for the B&O. The legislation, what's that supposed to reach? Do you know if it is enacted? Do you have any idea?
From what I understood, they met today and they are ironing out those details. And when those details become available, we will certainly share them. Whether it happens this year or next year, it remains to be seen. But Curtis and I were talking about it earlier. I believe every senator and every representative voted to pass that piece of legislation. So for us as a nonprofit organization, a statewide nonprofit, it really speaks volumes to the support that our legislators and the folks that they represent, that they support this program.
Exactly. Go ahead, Barb.
So what is your operating budget, and what are your sources of income besides B&O and then the city's contribution?
Well, you know, our operating budget is a little bit in flux this year. And because I'm new to the position, I don't necessarily want to put a name on a number, but I'd be happy to, or a number to the budget, I'd be happy to share with you. Right now we have membership, we have sponsorships, we have B&O, thankfully. When I first came here, I put 8 little galvanized buckets out with little signs, because I was trying to figure out how are we going to move forward when we're an organization where 85% of our revenue has come from events and we can't produce events? So this year, we've also explored merchandise sales. For those of you that are familiar, we have 512 Apparel is selling our Love Local, Love Sumner t-shirts and sweatshirts. I noticed that it wasn't on our website, so I have our web designer putting it up this week. So please feel free to support us in that way. When we do get our 501(c) status, we will launch an individual campaign, which might include monthly donations, credit card donations, which are effective ways. Advertising sales, we produce, as you know, our walking map, and we do sell ads that go in that. We sell ads in our Rhubarb Times that we've produced for Rhubarb Days. So, and we hope, again, as a 501(c)(3 to explore grants. And we started at our annual meeting doing a virtual auction that perhaps when we go back to live meetings, we can expand and do a regular full-blown auction. So we're definitely trying to be creative. We're reimagining our fundraising means and trying to be available to anything and everything that's out there.
Sounds good. I like the variety that you have there.
You can't put all your eggs in one basket.
Okay. I don't see any other questions or comments from council members. The one word that comes to my mind, Jill, over this last year is just, I mean, it's probably overused, but it's true. It's resiliency. You know, it's been a struggle, and especially for, you know, SMSA, and talk about, you know, God coming into position and dealing with that along with everything else. Done a great job, and congrats on the B&O thing. I mean, that was huge. Main Street status is huge, and you know, and the partnerships that you have forged have been great. So nice work. Look forward to getting back to some semblance of normalcy. It would be nice to get, you know, to get together as a group and see one another, and that will come. As long as we get enough people vaccinated, and I'll make a plug for that, especially in East Pierce County, where we're having a problem getting those people vaccinated, and we're having increased case counts. Okay, but I'll get through with the rant. But we need that if we're going to get back to normal, and we're going to have things like the events that we want to have. So
again,
we'll
thank you for having us. Thank you for bearing through our technical difficulties. I promise if you invite me back, I'd love to come back. Second quarter, I'm going to be on it.
Okay. Anyway, Curtis, congratulations. Good luck. And thank you, Joe. And have a good evening. You're welcome to stay and as attendees and watch the meeting. If you did, we start to question your judgment, but you can if you want. We're going to be talking about permitting, which could affect some of your businesses.
Well, I believe we've asked to have this same presentation at our Economic Vitality Committee meeting next week or the week after. So, you know, once is probably sufficient.
Okay. You're excused then. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Take care. Okay. Now we move on to item number 2, which is permit process update. Acting City Administrator, Mr. Beagle, do I turn this over to you?
Yes, sir. Great. Thanks, Mayor. Good evening, Council again. Myself and Associate Planner Scott Waller will be giving a presentation on an update to our permitting process. And we'll also be talking about our InterGov permit software and some of our larger developments. Slide, please, Scott. Great. So when we established this department, we set some goals out that we would set the standard of excellence for permit issuance. And this is accomplished through timely reviews with predictable outcomes that help projects get permitted. And this we're working towards that every day. Slide, please. So in order to do this, we wanted to understand exactly what we had here. And so when you see this presentation, just remember that there's really 6 members of staff that do the work. I'm the one that kind of hovers while everybody else does all the work. And this is permit intake, correspondence, fee processing, inspection, certificate of occupancy, plan review and inspections, building code review and inspections, engineering review, fire code review, and code enforcement. This is a large body of work with just a staff of 6 people. We consider ourselves highly successful most of the time, and we're as ecstatic to have that. Next. So the permitting activity, these are building permits, okay? And in 2019, we had 937 building permits. This doesn't include street obstruction permits, mechanical, those kind of things. This is strictly building. In 2020, we had 868. And in 2021, in the first quarter, we had 209. So we fell off a little bit, but we're really not falling off at all. And, the average times is 27 calendar days for building permits. In this, I need to make this clear. That's if they submit plans that are worthy. We do not do well when we design by review, meaning they want us to tell them what to put on their plans. This is something that we really struggle with. But for those folks that do their best to get us everything that we need, so there's only typically one review. We can guarantee, not guarantee, but we approximate 27 calendar days for a building permit, which if you look at other jurisdictions around us that are similar sizes, we are way above average for what this typically takes.
Doug, if I could throw in a comment here, because I know I've been on the receiving end of owners of businesses that get a hold of me, because they say, wait a minute, our permit isn't being processed in a timely manner. And there is a vast number of them where when you start to look into it, it's because they have turned in the plans, which are disastrous, and their expectation, I know, is that they will be told through the review process of the areas that they need to correct. And I'll use this term, but I think staff oftentimes is thrown under the bus on this thing as the problem, when really it is the consultant or the firm itself that is the problem. Anyway, end of rant. Go ahead, Doug.
Well, we always talk about if we can just get to neutral, where we don't have anybody bad mouthing us or telling us it's our fault, that's a success. We don't get people thanking us afterwards that we got their permit as quick as we could. So we know it's a challenging position and a challenging job, but we accept it. And when the mayor calls in and says where we're at with this permit, we have a chronology laid out of when they submitted, when our review letter went back to them, when their second submittal went back to us, when our third review letter went to them. We have it laid out. So the mayor can then have that information available for when this individual or person calls in. Okay, next slide, please.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Scott Waller. I'm one of the associate planners here at the city who does a lot of plan review. And I'll kind of briefly go through our permit process for kind of various projects and give you an outline of that. So while there's a lot of different permits, a lot of different projects, you can break them down into these 3 categories here of new construction, tenant improvements, and single family residential. And new construction is, if you think of a vacant lot or an underdeveloped lot and, someone's going to rip it apart and build a big new building there, that's kind of what we mean when we say new construction. It includes dirt work, site work, utility work, paving, and a building being constructed. Sometimes those buildings are built out for a specific business in mind. Sometimes they're built out for someone to develop, and then they just know that down the road a business will come in and occupy that space. We have 2 different kind of styles of build outs. Tenant improvements are, you have an existing building and you have a new business looking to come in, or you have an existing business who is looking to maybe expand or just remodel their existing office space or things like that. They can vary greatly tenant improvements. You can have a warehouse coming in to add some racking, and really our building official needs to see those. Or you can have tenant improvements where it might be a new business coming in. They might be doing a lot of plumbing work, a lot of utility work. They might even be doing exterior work on the building or a little bit of site work. And so those can range a lot, and the scope of those projects can range a fair amount. But generally speaking, tenant improvements are pretty small. We get a lot of them, and they're generally very quick to turn around, and really it's our building official who's the main person looking at those. The third category is single family residential, and these are just permits for residents in town who are maybe building a house, remodeling their house, building a garage. Sumner a couple years ago removed some items so that residents don't need permits for everything, but the remaining items that still do need permits, we have a single family residential permit form, and it's just kind of a one sheet. They describe what they're doing, and that gets reviewed by staff. So the first up, which was the bigger style of project, is new construction. And like I said, this is a vacant piece of property or underdeveloped or kind of a dilapidated piece of property that a developer is looking at building a brand new building here. And so we always recommend starting off with what's called a pre-application. And this is a free service that the city offers. And it allows the developer, the potential buyer, the potential business owner to submit an application to the city for free and kind of outline what their plans are, kind of outline what they're looking to build, where they're looking to build it, what site they're looking at. And it gives staff a chance to review it and give them a lot of preliminary comments and feedback, let them know things about zoning. Are there wetlands nearby? What codes are relevant? What processes would this project need to go through, just so they can kind of help better plan what their project would entail. And it's kind of staff's chance to really give them all the information we possibly can and give them all the resources, give them as many answers as we can up front so they can make an informed decision on their project moving forward. Moving on from that point, if a developer looks to construct on a site, the permits going forward would get broken up into land use permits. And those are things like SEPA, which is the State Environmental Policy Act. It's one of the times you see those big notice signs go up on sites that say land use or public comment period. SEPA is a type of land use design review, which is when staff and our design commission look at a project to see if it kind of fits into Sumner's character and design elements. We have conditional use permits, which are for users that are a bigger user that could be impactful. And so staff and the residents and the community get a chance to review that project. These are things like schools or churches that are going into a residential zone where we want the public to be informed. We want the public to comment. We want to make sure that lighting and noise isn't going to be an impact on neighboring residents. Land use permits include things like short plats or subdivisions where someone's looking to divide a piece of property. Land use permits also include things like shoreline permitting or wetlands or critical areas permits if there's those presence on site. And land use permits generally occur first in the permitting process. These kind of set the stage for what the development will look like, what's allowed there. If there are any environmental constraints, that's when those get worked out, as well as public comments occur at this stage. The next stage of a project would be the development permits. And those are broken up into your civil permits, which cover your site work. You're moving dirt, you're paving, you're putting in utilities, that sort of thing. Building permits, pretty self-explanatory, that's the building. People do break these up. Sometimes like I said, they'll build out a blank building, a big warehouse, and they don't know who's going to move in. And then down the road, your warehouse company moves in, your outdoor recreation company moves in, or whatever business moves in ends up going in there. But people know there's a demand for some types of buildings, so they'll build out just a kind of a blank speculative shell of a building. And here's our permit process that was kind of alluded to earlier. So for all of our permits, whether it's a large new construction project or a single family, we have the same flow. We have the same process flow that kind of keeps things in check. So we need someone to submit something, obviously. Our development services specialist then takes that submittal and sends it to the applicable reviewers. So some projects, only our building official needs to see it, to see how things are fastened. some projects, every single one of our reviewers needs to look at because there's a lot of elements to it. And so it's important that everyone review it and have a chance to sign off on it. At the end of that review, once everyone's had a chance to look it over, we either provide the applicant with an approval, they get their permit stamped and they're ready to go, or we send them a comment letter that has the comments broken down by each reviewer and a list of what we see that needs correcting on that plan set. And it's kind of our goal to get them to an approval. And so we're trying to coach them or point them to the codes or the regulations that they need to look at and then make adjustments to. And then we send that letter to them and they resubmit. And that piece of the process and how long that takes is kind of up to the applicant on how quickly and how well they can respond to those applicants or to the comment letter. And so sometimes we see applicants turn it around and resubmit a great piece of work and it's good to go. Sometimes we go through this cycle more times than need be because we keep sending comments out and something will be resubmitted with many items unaddressed. But that's our permit flow for every type of permit is review a consolidated comment letter to give the whole picture of what needs to occur and then resubmittal. So our tenant improvements, as I mentioned, these are generally smaller. They're generally going to be an existing building that an existing business is either remodeling, expanding, or moving into. And they're more than welcome to still submit a pre-application, which is that free kind of preliminary review. Or a lot of times these just begin with a phone call to a planner or a development services specialist to kind of discuss, hey, here's what I'm looking to do. What do I need to know? What kind of process is this? And we can send them the correct form and kind of coach them on how to get things submitted and done. Tenant improvements, they're going to require a building permit because there's built work being done. Sometimes they require land use permits, but it's not very often. Like I said, sometimes these are just racks being installed. It's a bathroom remodel at an office. It's a new business moving in to replace an older business that was there. So they don't always need land use permits. In fact, they generally don't. It's typically just one building permit and that's it. And again, these go through the same process as a large scale project. It'd be submit, city review. We provide either an approval or comments at the end of that process. The third style is single family residential. This one's very straightforward. It doesn't have any other bells and whistles to it. If a resident is doing work that does trigger a building permit, they would submit an application. Again, it gets routed to whoever needs to see it. Sometimes it's just our building official who needs to make sure it's up to building code. Sometimes a planner needs to see it because they're making a building taller or building out into a setback area. Sometimes our engineer needs to see it because they're adding impervious surface and they need to look at stormwater. So we route those to the reviewers that need to see them, but in order to save time, we don't route them to everyone if that's not necessary.
Okay, great, thanks. So we had to look internally to see what some of our improvements could be to get us to our goals that we wanted. And so we went through the lien review with Washington State's Auditor's Office for just that permits. How do we make our permits more transparent? How do we get people to understand our process better? And so that lien review was a great exercise for the city to go through. We're implementing InterGov permit software, which we're hoping to that going live on June 1st, and that will give the applicant, the owner, engineer, everybody the ability to look online and see where their permit is in the process, which reviewer has it, how long they've had it, what comments they are coming out of that department will go directly to those folks. So that's a more streamlined process that we're using. We're also the Department of Commerce Manufacturer Regulatory Roadmap that Ryan Windish has been working on. Scott will talk about that in a few minutes. Public noticing, third-party review, and we have fire review, which we know is coming back into the city. And we have interviews on Wednesday of this week for potential candidates, as well as economic development. So again, I think I overstepped already on this slide. We went through the process to improve and had an audit, and we did a comprehensive walkthrough of the review of the permit process with subject matter experts. And that was completed the end of 2019 and 2020 and has been implemented into our program right now. And again, providing seamless permitting process, electronic submittals, which is a way the industry is going. No longer are we needing 6 copies of plan sets 24 by 36 for each reviewer to go through. It's all electronic. It's going to be amazing. It's like running water. But anyway, we also we can do electronic inspections here, and we can also use this program for our code enforcement as well.
All right, so the regulatory roadmap that Doug referenced, this was a joint effort between the city of Sumner and the Washington State Department of Commerce that occurred. It started a couple years back, and this was designed to be a tool for potential manufacturing companies who are looking at locating or relocating their business. And so it's a way that a manufacturer can look at a jurisdiction and decide if it has what it needs to move in or to move their business there. And so it's a web-based tool that allows someone from any part of the country or state to come and look and find Sumner and see what does Sumner's zoning allow for? Is there use allowed there? What sort of processes would be triggered, or what sort of permit process would be triggered for their business moving in? And it provides them with a great resource. And the goal of this isn't to provide every answer, but it's to be a starting point and try to put Sumner kind of on the map and get people looking at Sumner and interested in Sumner, because Sumner does have a very great industrial area. If you drive up to the north throughout town, we have a lot of nationally and big name recognized businesses and companies that call Sumner home. And it's a great location with amenities like a trail and well landscaped areas. And so it's a good space for a manufacturer to move in. So we want to put that out there. And then our goal is for people to find us there and then reach out to us and find someone to talk to see if it's a good fit for them. Third-party review is another way that this department's been looking at improving its process. And we have seen a lot of permits coming in. Sometimes the numbers might be a little bit down from last year, but some of the projects are really big projects and require a lot of process and a lot of review. And so we've been utilizing third-party review as needed. And so this allows the city, when we hit busier times, this season right now is when developers are trying to get their permit issued so they can start working in the dry weather. And so we see busier times this time of year. So third-party review allows a consulting engineering firm to look over our work or look over a permit and to kind of provide feedback and comments and free up some of our space.
Just before you get into that, Doug, you did talk about the numbers, and they're slightly down, but numbers don't mean much when you look into the future, especially at some of the size of the projects that you have coming up. Some of the apartment complex like the Red Apple and other ones, the school district, and any one of those projects up in the manufacturing industrial center, are huge. And so you look at the numbers, that's one thing, but you look at the amount of the activity and the size of the projects, it's a huge undertaking.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the number doesn't always tell the whole story. And as I mentioned, Mayor, some of those projects are big projects. Some of them are on very difficult sites with geotechnical issues, wetlands, streams, that it adds a lot more to it. And so one building permit doesn't always tell the whole story. Another item or area that we wanted to improve upon was public noticing. You may have noticed just recently we switched to a new style of public notice sign. If you go by the high school, you'll see, I believe, 14 of them spread across its campus there. And this is a new sign, what you're seeing up on the screen. It's the new format of our signs. They used to be a smaller kind of yellow sign that said public notice or proposed land use action. And the older signs were about 22 by 34 inches. These new signs are about 40 by 60 inches. So they're about 3 times as big. So they're a lot easier to see if you're driving by or walking by a site. You'll be able to tell more easily if there's a project proposed. And as you can see, it's a lot more user-friendly or reader friendly. Just looking at this at a glance, you see the the building rendering and a site plan. You see some quick information about the project, quick little details about what's being proposed, and then what you can do, when you can comment by, who the contact person is from staff. And then, since everyone has smartphones and always has those out, there's a QR code built into the sign where someone can just put their camera up to it, and it takes them straight to the city's website where all the documents for this project are located. So someone can really dig in if they want to, and it's a quick, easy way to do it. If you're walking down the street and you want to go home and look at it a little bit further. So we revamped these signs, as well as what I have right here is the new note cards that get mailed out, and it's really just a small version of the sign. Before, those note cards were about half that size and contained 1,000 words, and had all the parcel information, a whole bunch of crammed in information on this small card. It was pretty hard to read and didn't provide as good of information. And so we switched to a much more reader-friendly, postcard style that has all the information you're seeing on the screen there on this small mailed out card. And this is, again, for big enough projects that need public noticing. We send out notices through a variety of methods. The sign is one, a mailed notice is one. We use the Sumner Connects. We use Constant Contact, the city's website, and the Courier Herald. So we try to put all that information out there in as many ways as possible. And the sign and the mailer were one that we felt we had control over to make a good change on.
Great. So we're moving to, from outsourcing the fire permit review with East Pierce Fire and Rescue. We're going to split the position with the city of Bonnie Lake, and that'll go effective July 1st. And the biggest thing is to get greater control over the review process. With East Pierce Fire and Rescue, we weren't their only client. So, we could see some time delays there because they had other demands put on them. And we also know that through our process of reviewing this was going to be cost savings for the city. And economic development, from our top 5 businesses are within the city are 32% of our sales tax remitters. And so when we did the reorganization and made an economic development a priority to diversify the pie, to large retail, to attract and retain business, create a welcoming and inclusive community. And so Ryan Windish has been heading that up, and hopefully we're seeing some results from that.
So the projects we do have going on in Sumner, this is just a small sampling of them. We have more projects that are under construction currently that aren't on this list, and we have more projects that are early on in the pipeline that aren't on this list. But this is just a snapshot of a handful that I'll briefly go over. The first one is Peterbilt Trucking. That's a big time company who's moving into Sumner. They are building on a parcel up near 24th Street, kind of south of the 2 hotels and Bigfoot Java, kind of near that subway up there. And so that's going to be Peterbilt Trucking's Western headquarters, as well as their sale office, and they do some truck repair there on Peterbilt trucks. So it's a great business to have in town, and diversifies where we get our sales tax from. Another project in that same area is Triad Machinery, and they're going in on a vacant parcel north of 24th Street, kind of right across from the Shell gas station mustard seeds site, kind of between 136th, 24th, and the railroad. And they sell and rent out heavy machinery for everything from timber to construction. And so again, it's a good sales tax generator. Commercial user, they're a good example of a project that required a lot of the permits that you could need, because they're a big equipment sales company. So you have impacts for potential light and noise on adjacent properties, and they have wetlands on their site, and they were subdividing their site. So this is a good example of a project that we took through a lot of those land use permits. And fortunately, we're able to do a lot of those concurrent. And so instead of just finishing one and starting the next, we can kind of start them all about the same time, so we can get through those quicker. But they are underway in the permitting, and we're excited to have those 2 businesses moving into Sumner. The 1228 Riverfront, this is one of the first town center plan projects that came in. This is the site north of the existing library off of Friar Avenue. And it's a mixed use project where there'll be a 6-story building with commercial on the bottom, structured garage parking for the residents, and about 120 or so units for multifamily in that space, as well as building out a portion of the trail system along Friar that goes towards the river. Another project we have in is the Red Apple lot, which is the block adjacent to City Hall. And this is another big multi-use, mixed-use project in the town center plan area. It's going to have about 180 units and about 4,600 square feet of commercial space on the bottom. And they'll build out a good chunk of that city block there just next to City Hall. Nemeth mixed use. This one's located on the east side of town over off when Main Street turns to 60th. On the south side of the street there, it's currently kind of a vacant lot with just some trees and some vegetation on it. But it'll again be a mixed use commercial on the bottom with residential above and behind, with a variety of residential styles. So they'll have some townhomes on the site as well as kind of your stacked flats. And so we'll kind of give a variety of residential housing styles. Going up north in the industrial area, we have Seaport, which is north of the old golf course site. This is a large industrial build out site. So they're gonna, at full build out, they'll have about 2 million square feet of building space spread over about 7 buildings. And these are the concrete tilt up warehouses that you see. And the nice thing about these buildings is they do provide a place for a lot of these big businesses that we celebrate and that we, that call Sumner home. Your REIs and Helly Hansen, Penny Salsa. That's where all these operate out of, is these industrial warehouses. And so we're excited to see them move along. They're on building 4 of 7 currently. Another new warehouse coming in is Duke Realty, and they're at 1510 Puyallup Street. You can kind of see their building going up actually currently at that T intersection there on Puyallup and Tacoma. So they're building out, again, a very large warehouse. This is an example of a shell building. We know a building is being built. We know what it's going to look like. We know what the site's going to be like, but we don't know who's moving in yet. So at some point, we'll get an application for a tenant improvement of a business saying, hey, I want to move in here. What do I need to do? Filbert Acres is a rather large subdivision and might be one of the last big ones we have here in town. It's kind of located north of Main Street around Parker Road. And it's 53 lots. Just to give you an idea of housing demand in Sumner, most of these houses were pre-sold before they'd even applied for their building permits. They were finishing up their plat, and they had already pre-sold most of these properties. So there was a huge demand for people to move to Sumner, and people seem to be really enjoying that area. Stepping Stones is a smaller 9-lot plat. This is down off of Galt Street near Sumner Middle School. And it's 9 lots. Again, they were really excited to get building and provide some more housing. Another housing project is Creekside Townhomes. This is up on kind of the north end, where Elm Street bends and kind of takes that curve there up against the hill. It's currently a vacant kind of triangular shaped property, and this will be about 33 townhomes. So we'll provide some multifamily housing out in that area, as well as some needed frontage improvements where there's currently no curb gutter or sidewalk. So it will be a good improvement out in that area of town. Another big project is the Sumner High School. They just went through their conditional use permit hearing a week or 2 ago, and they're in for a phased redevelopment of that Sumner High School campus site. That will include about 330,000 square feet of new building space in a phased out construction project. So like I said, those are just some of the projects we're working on. We have more that have been previously approved, and we're looking at them and inspecting them. There's more that are kind of coming into the pipeline, but it's just a snapshot of what we're working on here. This is a list of development services. This is our team here, and we're all available. Most of these projects, or all of them, really start off with an applicant reaching out to one of us or all of us, and we can kind of coach them and point them in the right direction. So we're always taking emails and phone calls from applicants and potential developers on sites, and helping them figure out what they need to do. And we know that was a lot of information, a lot of projects, lots of permitting talk. So we're happy to elaborate or answer questions there.
Nice job. Questions or comments council members have of staff? I think Cindy had her hand up, Patrick, right ahead of you. I saw the hand reaching right towards the camera there, so I think it's hers. We'll go Cindy, then we're going to go Patrick, then we're going to go Barb, and then we're going to go back to the deputy mayor. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Scott, I want to comment on how happy I am your department stepped forward on redoing the public notice signs. I think our citizens are really, really going to enjoy that. They're going to be so much more public friendly, and they're understandable. And I think we'll get more communication with our citizens that way. So thank you for making that move for everybody.
Thank you, Cindy. Patrick.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for going through the work, the lean process. I know those are not easy. They are fun, but they're a lot of work. And I appreciate that because one of the common feedbacks previously, or at least for some time, has been that staff have been great, but the process is complex, time consuming, and expensive. And any steps that we're taking to help make that better, I really appreciate. And I'm looking forward to seeing all of those items go into effect. So thank you.
Barb.
So I appreciate the new signage because last fall, my neighbor said, oh, they're going to be building Sunset Chev, parking lot next to the fire station because it was one of the old yellow signs that had outdated material underneath probably the permit material. So I'm glad that that's happening. But I also I walked over to the train station, and today I noticed there's still a notice from August of 2020 about, I think, getting the lot or for the parking garage. So it's just would be nice if that was either removed or updated. And then I had a question about how small a project do you consider? Because I had somebody that asked me about, they wanted to put in one of the small libraries and were told it would cost like $200 for their permit. And I'm just curious, is that really true? Or, anyway, I'd like your comments.
Want me to answer that one, Scott? Take you off the hook?
Hey, go for it if you have an answer there, Mayor.
Okay. In that particular one that cost $200, normally if they put it on their private property, obviously they can just put it in. But in this case, there was a conflict with utilities on the private property. So they had to place it out in public rights of way, which, you can't make an exception for them and then require it of other people. So yeah, it's a one-time fee of $200. And for the applicant, I said I would throw in 100 if somebody else would throw in theirs, and we'd get it taken care of.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, that's, at least I got an answer. So thank you.
I think that was the right answer, wasn't it, Scott?
That is at least the one that I'm recalling. If that's the same one we're talking about here, is all about the location. On private property, it'd be a lot different. But once you're in the right of way, it's a different ball game.
So if it's on your private property, would you have to pay for it? Or just have to apply or something?
You'd still need to apply. I don't know off the top of my head what the fee would be. Generally, for a building permit of that size, it'd be very small because it's usually based off the valuation of the project for a building permit. And, those are made out of, 5 pieces of wood
right.
and a small concrete footing. So I can't see off the top of my head how much it would be, but it shouldn't be very much.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Good, Kathy.
Okay, I just want to say that I'm in a business where I get lots of feedback from lots of builders and architects and contractors, and I hear very good things said. And Normally they compare us to Puyallup, and so far Puyallup is losing. So good feedback. Thanks a lot, guys. Nice job.
So we should give Puyallup the prize for making us look good. Okay, Josh.
Yeah.
What Kathy was saying kind of is one of my questions. I mean, how do our permit fees and our lead times compare to like neighboring towns?
Well, I know our times are a lot better than that. You know, I for fees, I don't know the answer to that, and we can certainly provide you that. But yeah, I have no idea. Scott, do you have any? Or
yeah, I know it was looked at not too long ago to kind of compare some of our fees, because I think we found that some of our fees, I believe it was parks, were a bit lower. And I think we ended up raising them a little bit to kind of keep them a little more on pace with others to provide our parks with more resources. Yeah, I don't recall exactly where all the fees landed, because there are a number of fees. You have impact fees and permit fees.
Okay, and one other thing, what is the threshold for needing a permit? I mean, if somebody wants to remodel their kitchen, or if they're putting new countertops on, like, do we have a place to go that just shows simply what you do need a permit for, what you don't?
So when we gave this presentation to the chamber, that was one of the things that was discussed about a little bit more transparency. So currently we're working with Carmen and the communications group to put some things on our website to give people a place to go where they can get their questions answered. So it's a work in progress, but we should have it out here pretty soon.
It's a good question, Josh. Yeah, it goes to I think the whole transparency, because I think what I've noticed in this whole thing in terms of intergov and everything else is transparency. Is they can look and you can see where it is in the process, what it costs, et cetera. So, but that's excellent thing, because we should be doing that for all city services, doing that benchmarking. Where do we stand? And
yeah, thanks. It's a pretty common question I get as well.
Yeah. Andrea, I saw your hand raised before I call on Charlotte. Do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out for the community and for our council members that there is a code section 15.08.020 that has a list of work that's exempt from the permit requirements. And it's a pretty thorough list. And if there are questions about it, we can help clarify, but that's a good place to start.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, Charlotte.
Thanks. I was wondering roughly what's the ratio so far this year, or maybe it's easier to answer for last year, the number of types of industrial, commercial, and residential permits that we received, and how much has that differed from like pre-COVID years and whatnot in terms which, and it may not be related. I'm just using COVID as a time frame, not actually suggesting that cause and effect.
So we do have a spreadsheet that tracks that, and I'm probably not going to be able to pull it up in time.
That's fine. I mean, I'm just wondering if I can find out later.
Yeah, certainly. We do have that, and we do track that, and we track it monthly, and then we have yearly totals, and we keep them by years. So, and that's provided at the CD committee as well in their packet every month. So I will find that and distribute it.
Thanks. Do we, so I have a couple more, sorry. Do we track inquiries that we get, like inquiries for projects, but whereas they may not end up submitting an application? Like, do we know how many people, do we track calls that we receive, like basically calls of interest, but then they end up not proceeding?
Scott, do you have any input for that? I don't think we track it.
No, we
have so much other stuff going on. I just don't think we track it.
Yeah, correct. We don't track that. We receive a lot of calls. You know, a site goes up on the market or the pricing changes, and we just get flooded with people looking to buy the parcel. We also get, it'd be hard to track because I've had parcels where I've had a call from the current owner, a potential buyer, an agent on the owner's side, an agent on the seller's side, potential other person involved, and they don't always share who they're working with, but then it comes out that it was all, you know, 2 parties, but you got called by 6 people. So it can be a little hard to know how much interest is out there or just how many people are contacting you from 1 or 2 parties.
Okay, thank you. And then I have another tracking question, and that is, and I think it sounds like the answer is yes, but that you do track the length of time for each that it takes for each type of for each permit for the approval process. And then do you track averages for each type of permit?
We do track it, and we do track for averages on each permit. And, you know, I'll just say some days are better than others.
I believe that, like, for all of us. For all of us. And then when a permit, and sorry, and I think you only have one more. When a permit is submitted, does staff currently do multiple staff members look, like review it simultaneously, or typically does our process involve like waiting for one staff person to take a look and then moving on to the next department, even though the departments are now merged?
Yeah, great question. Everyone looks at it at the same time, or at least can look at it at the same time. So once a permit comes in, it gets routed to anyone who needs to see it, and they get an email notification saying, here's this permit, here's the link, you know, to all the documents. And then, you know, the planner, the building official, fire and engineer can all click on that thing and pull it up, look it over. There's one shared letter everyone just types their comments into, and that gets sent out. So it is concurrent. There's no kind of handoff that needs to occur.
Okay, great. Thank you for all the work.
Okay. Any other questions or comments council has? I do not see any. I would echo what the rest of you have said. Is great work. You guys have taken it on with a passion, and I love the metrics, and I love the involvement with the customers that you've had, and I just a great job. It's one of the most important functions that we have is the processing of building permits. And I know you've had a lot of people that have looked in and said, oh, wait a minute, we can help you with it, until they come in and look at what you've done and they say, well, no, we really can't help you with it because you guys are already, you know, doing the type of things that we think you should be. So anyway, great work. Look to have you continue to do great stuff. It'd be nice when we get everything electronic, and you will be able to, one thing you didn't mention is that you will be able to accept credit cards, correct?
Yes.
Because I remember the last time I came in to get a side sewer permit, I had to write a check. And that was the first check I've written in a long time. So anyway, so looking forward to the future. Again, great job, continuing the great work, and thanks for your presentation tonight. Okay. We go on to City Administrator Report, and I will give you the opportunity, Mr. Beagle, to say whatever, well, not whatever you want, but, you know, you can make a report.
I have none, your Mayor.
Excellent report. We go on to agenda setting in terms of City Council meeting agendas or Council Committee agendas. Anybody have anything they need to share that they're not going to be there? Somebody else needs to be there? Mr. Brown.
Yes, on the public safety meeting next Wednesday, the 19th, I will be unable to Zoom. Mr. Reed, are you available?
I believe that I am. Let me confirm. It's at 5 o'clock?
Yes.
on the 19th. I can do that.
Awesome.
We have a winner. Thank you very much, Patrick.
Thanks.
Okay. Patrick, you raised your hand.
I did. I was going to mention we've got a finance committee on Wednesday, and I am able to make it at 5:30, but I do have to leave about 6:30. I don't know how long the agenda is anticipated to take, but just in case it runs longer than that, I may have to cut out a little bit early.
Okay. That's fair.
I try not to ramble and keep us there too long, but it does happen sometimes.
Well, just don't ramble as much in that one, Patrick. Then you can leave in good conscience. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I don't see any. Take it, Andrew. We do not have an executive session tonight. That's good. And seeing that there is no other business before the city council for the study session, we are adjourned at 7:36. Be safe, everyone.
Have a good night.
Good night.